Hello, student A. I will be doing your video assessment today from Percussion IQ. The first thing I want to do is quickly go over your report that was already conducted prior to this video analysis, and then we'll go through breaking down your snare IQ, looking at things in slow motion, circling a couple things that we might have some issues on, so you'll see some screen annotations throughout the performance. And then what we also will do is we'll be going back and forth through all the different assessment pieces, and that'll be easier for me to talk through some of the good things you're doing and some of the issues that you have to help you get stronger as a player. So in your report, this is your score. You scored an 87.5. Right here in this comment section is where I described on each exercise the things that I thought were holding you back from getting a perfect 10. So you'll see on number 1, I talk about your left accents and taps, and we'll talk about that more in the video breakdown. We talk about some of your rhythmic accuracies and balance of some crescendos at the end of number 2. Number 3, we look at tap issues that we saw on the left hand compared to right. Number 4, minor morphine and rhythmic issues through the modulations. Number 5, some flam issues, and then the piece. Some notes of some of the things that I thought held you back. They're similar to what the exercises were. On the side is what I wrote was your issue scale, whether it was very critical, major, or minor. And these correlate to the number you got on your score. So you could see in like number 5, the flam exercise, I thought you had some major sound issues that we'll talk about in your breakdown, and then some minor issues in technique and rhythm. Scrolling down this guy, what we do in the 4th sheet, just so you know, the first sheet is your cover page. Second sheet is an example to help you understand your report. Page 3 is what we just went over, which breaking down your video on through verbiage. Page 4 is now the same comments as page 3, but we're actually diving into what are ways to get better from the comments and the issues you have on the left column. Well, these are things that I would do if I were you to practice at home without taking lessons or working when you do take lessons, working with your instructor on. Page number 5 is your issues report. So based off of your page number 3, where I gave all your comments and I said if it was minor, major, critical, this will show up as a visual diagram of what you should be really focusing on. These are the things that are holding you back from becoming a better player yourself. So almost on everything you did, I caught some sound issues, meaning there was balancings wrong with your taps or your accents. There was a lot of variation the way you hit the drum. That was your major issue. It was accounting for 40% of your problems. Adding rhythmic issues into that, the combination of rhythm and sound issues accounted for 70% of your issues. You had minor tempo things. Tempo only accounted for about 15% of your problems, and the vocabulary and technique accounted for the last 13%. But in general, you're going to want to focus on the guys that give you your most concerns, which would be your sound and your rhythm. You can see we start crossing your 80-20 line, the Pareto issues, right at a little going into tempo. So these are the guys that are really holding you up. I think you have some solid technique going on, basically. I think your vocabulary is pretty strong, too. A couple things there. It's mainly these guys with some always tempo that's going to be buckling you up and holding you back when you go to those world-class auditions of yours. The last page is your comparison report to our gold standard for this quarter of the year, which is Jay Reddick's, who you could see his scores. Right here, gold standard, these are what he got on each exercise in the piece, and then how you compare to him. So that helps you understand, how do I compare to one of the top players in the world right now in 2017? Well, this is where I stand being dealing between his flams and my flams, my roles and his roles score-wise, how he did on the piece versus how I did on the piece. So understanding that gap will help you be a little more realistic when you come into the auditions of where these guys stand and what you need to do to close the gap to be more of a competitive force at those auditions to make those groups you've always dreamed of. All right, let's do it. Let's talk through this guy. I'll be sometimes playing some stuff in slow motion because it'll be easier for you to hear the things I hear and for me to circle little things that I catch. Yeah, already very strong balance of accents, taps very even, good rhythmic modulation. Let's see how we do when we get to the 16-0 portion. think we need to do any slow-mo on that. I think I could break this down pretty well. I thought we did good in the very beginning, so let's move on. When we get into the two-hand guy, where I found there was some issues is our left-hand accents. Oh, excuse that. Let me fix that real quick so it's not so big. Let's go back to there. Okay. We got into these accents off the left. Not as much power on them compared to the right. I saw some minor issues coming into the dotted eighth where we had some tap variants. So as soon as we went into, those 2/16 notes of space right here before we come back in with the left hand, we started having some rhythmic issues closing the phrase off. When you take it off the left hand lead, there was definitely some issues with the patterns where there was less taps in between the accents. So I definitely recommend that you're going to be playing some more 2-3 bucks type of exercises where we're looking at just these isolated one tap in betweens from your accents, mainly off the left hand. The last thing I really caught in all this was when you were decrescendoing, these right hands on the second to last bar, it felt like you held on the stick a little bit more. Like you were gripping the stick too tight before you got into the modulated 5. It impacted your sound. It also caused some little rhythmic discrepancies even before you got to count 4. We want, as we decrescendo, your hand to slowly close the grip. And I felt like you were over pinching a little bit as we came down. That's what also gave us some concerns. Let's watch it. Might as well. Let's watch it a little bit in slow-mo. See if you can catch some of those things I talked about. This is where our left hand wasn't matching our right hand power. Left taps are a little higher. Some rhythm issues. Yeah, right there. Let's see if I can just... Right there is where we had some... What I circled on the screen was where I saw your grip change on counts 2 and 3 on the right hand on the decrescendo 16 notes. That causes some sound issues and it had minor rhythmic issues as well. So we want to resist the temptation to close that grip more than we need to, because then that's what hurts our curve as we come down in our heights. That's our curve on the decrescendo. Right in the middle of it, that's when we got like that distorted sound and a little bit botchy because of our grip. It's something for us to look at. Maybe some more decrescendo, crescendo 8 on a hand. Let's move on. All right, here we go. Number 2. Number 2. Yeah, I thought you played that one pretty well. I thought that was one of your stronger ones. Let me highlight some things I thought were great. So what I thought great was your check pattern. Most players tend to play the pugada a little different than the dagapa. I thought you did a fantastic job of not over gripping these right hands, making sure everything was fluid on that. Good for you. I thought your single hair twists were good. I thought your hair twists accents were great. We started getting into issues. We got to the single 5s. We don't like single 5s off the left hand. It happened in both reps. I think what we could work on is maybe some rule of 16 on just some low single 5s and do some diminuendo single 5s. I don't think we were impacted by the check before. I just think we haven't done enough single 5s. So your single rudiments are hurting a little bit hand to hand. At the end, I caught some minor discrepancies on the rhythmic space on these first 3 notes of the hertas. Once again, probably could be fixed with some Rule 16 work on some quicker herta patterns. I think we played better hertas when it was a little slower, but when we got to these quicker ones, just be ready to pinch off the pugada. How open is the right hand here, and then the right hand here, okay? The last thing I kind of caught on it was, felt like if we're going to start from this crescendo off these threes, we want to take our previous height of the, the low tapped hertas to build. And I felt like there was a jump from there to there, from that last partial of the herta to the threes, where we didn't get a smooth like 3 3 3 3 boom. It was more like a 3 3 3 3, and it didn't have a good dynamic balance and let us bleed well into the dynamic contrast. We want to jump based on the rudiment change. See if we can catch that in real time, and then we'll move on. Probably right around here. Off the left, a little rough. Yeah, hopefully you were able to see that. I'd say just watch your own video, Student A in Slowmo, on that guy, where you're going to be able to hear the slight change in the herta quality at the end. You could see right there when we replayed it, the threes popping up out of nowhere off those quick hertas, and then our struggling single fives. Let's move on. All right, we got some paradiddle time. Talk about it. Concerns, major concerns is this diddle of a paradiddle. Always on your left paradiddles, your tap is a lot higher, meaning we're not getting a strong bucks balance from that left accent to that left tap. And hopefully that sounds a little familiar, because we saw that same issue on the left hand when we got into these two-handed tap accent patterns off the left, where the taps would be a little higher. We had some balance issues, some rhythmic issues. Well, guess what? It showed up a little bit on this guy as well. Okay, I'd say that's more of a major issue you're going to want to look into, is just making sure that left tap isn't higher than the right. We want to get it back into the same tap range as on your check. The other concern is these partials. Everybody, when they play 4-4-2-1, has an enemy in either the first bar, which means if they struggle with the first bar in 4-4-2-1, they're going to struggle with bars 2 and 3. So this is written because there's students that struggle with the third accent or the second accent as far as timing displacement. Yours is the second one. You tend to be a little hot. You get to these second partials. Timing wise, you're not playing a perfect triplet. You're coming a little early, so you're kicking a little early. Some minor rhythmic deficiencies. I suggest you play all your flam rudiments with the accent on the second partial to make that your new comfort zone, rather than always everything being displaced on the downbeat. Tempo-wise, overall was solid. Most students struggle with the check in the beginning, but you did a good job staying relaxed in the hands. You're very good at staying relaxed in the hands. Now can we keep that same relaxed grip, but with good height differential when we get to the paradiddle bars? On the last part, similar to the bar 2, there was some minor tap height issue when you let off the left paradiddle diddle. Let's watch the Slowmo a little bit, see if we can hear us being a little hot on that second partial of the 4-2-1, and let's check out our tap height when we play the paradiddles. Here we go. That's not it. Boom. You can hear it early. You hear that kick in there? Do-da-do, 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 do-da-do. It's a little hot, not in the pocket anymore. See where our left tap was? It was right up there. I'm going to slow it back down a little bit, and or take it back a little bit, and I'm going to circle where your left tap is. There's your left tap right here. Now our tap went up to there. Cool. So some things we could fix in there. Let's move on to your rolls. Here we go. Roll time. overall, I thought it was pretty strong. Let's the things that I caught was just every once in a while you pinch off these two diddles, which makes sense because I mean it's right before you go into a modulation. But we got a little tight there. We lost the, I guess, finishing that bar, that phrase before you go into the next phrase. So that means there's a little too much pinch in your fulcrum right when you kicked into, eighth notes or triplets. So the other thing is if you go back, and I'm going to be real picky, I thought we were more successful with when we play in a duple and then when we play into triplet. If there's anything I'd work on more, it'd be these guys. I felt like your count twos were always somewhat of a guess to get to compared to our duple. And I noticed you had a little bit more of those 9-stroke issues going into triplet rhythms than when you went into duple rhythms. Minor little balance sometimes at the top of the phrases. Like here we had a rip through the end of this quarter note triplet phrase on the first rep because we didn't get to count 2. And on the last bar, you're balancing your hands. If we were just doing just a cold attack triplet roll by itself, would it be smooth? I think there would be a couple of diddles that are a little tight in there that I heard on this last bar. Let's hear it again in slow-mo on the first rep. Thought you played this really well, but these are the little things that will show up in the piece later on if you have little modulation issues now in a short period of time of count 4 to count 1. They're going to happen in longer roll phrases. Okay, let's hit it. Good modulation, good modulation. You hear that? You could hear the last partial, like we were talking about, right? Here. Tightening up, and then you didn't hit count 2 and count 3 around the money, so it caused all these rhythms to be a little jacked. Watching in slow-mo, I think you'll see a lot of the things I just saw just throughout the rest of the exercise. Let's get to your flams. One of the things I think there's a lot of room for growth in. All right, here we go. Flam time. We'll watch it 2 times and then we'll check it out. Or we'll watch it 1 time, your 2 reps. So far, everything I've seen, there's a lot of things we could fix in here. I think from a chops and vocabulary point of view, there's little things I'm catching that you can work on. So on the flam 5s, your right hand for the first time isn't giving us as good of a tap accent as you did on everything else you played. You're a little wide in your grip. You're kind of loose maybe in your fulcrum, and it in turn causes you to slur once in a while these flam 5s. I thought our left hand flam 5s were a little bit more accurate to the that single 5 rhythm. Our right hand would slur a little bit, and because we didn't have a strong differential on our right hand when it comes to height differential, it caused us to be a little slurred, and we had different sound between the right hand and left hand flam 5s. I would highly suggest you do the a flam 5 breakdown, and do that with both hands at the same time. Make sure we're matching heights, that's first and foremost. And then if you're getting those really nasty flams when you're trying to get double stops, that means that we're having some interpretation issues. Most likely your right's gonna be a little wider than your left, so you're gonna have the flams. These diddles on the first partials are gonna be a little flammy between your 2 hands because you're not being the same openness in your grip. So that's some focus that you gotta check out on that guy. On our tachetas, whenever you went off the left hand, these right diddles, they would slur out more and more. You should do some tacheta rule 16, but what I'm hearing is which is a good tacheta when you did a right hand lead with a left hand double. When you did a left hand lead with a right hand double, it went da. So it wasn't a correct math of a 3/2. So we had every minor one every once in a while. Got the hand in hands. I appreciate your relaxation. Now the next step is refinement, right? You understand the rudiment. You understand to be balanced. Now we got to refine these taps should be in the same ballpark range of height and balance as the taps on your flam 5s, as the taps on your inverted characters, your cheese, whatever. We came way up in our balance on these taps. That tells me when we get to the piece, you're probably going to, when you get to the harder flam phrases, bring up your taps quite a bit, and we're going to lose the balance that you had on your taps when you were playing your paradiddles, your low rolls, your low hertas, and your tap accent patterns that we had in the previous 4 exercises. We'll see that right now when we review it. And on the inverts, based on the invert, you had really different flam insert based on the invert and power of the inverted flam. I thought you were giving a lot more kick on your left hand at times, maybe because we're not as comfortable on inverts, but definitely there was some accent power differences from right to left hand. And then also, let's make sure we're not just throwing these cheeses in. What I would do is go back and forth between playing like hertas, like on number 2, doing some single hertas, and then going into some of these cheeses, and then putting the flam in there to basically play your cheese chichadas, are your 24th note partials, since we're playing triplets, are they always the same width when it comes to diddles? I know I'm getting picky, but elite players, we want to make sure our diddle interpretation is the same, regardless if we're playing flam 5s, tachadas, or inverted rudiments, and I felt like our inverts were a little tighter than how we might play the diddle, the 24th notes on our tachadas. Lot to take in. Let's watch one rep in slow-mo before we go to the piece. Let's see what we talk about as we review this. Let's listen to our power from hand to hand, our height differences hand to hand, our interpretation of the 3/2 and the tachadas, and then the inverts, just the wide flams, as well as are your cheeses always the same math. Hopefully we could see that in slow-mo through this channel. Already some 5-stroke issues as far as a perfect hand to hand. You can see a little bit of height difference. It's hard to hear the pressure on the sounding unless you listen to real time, but it was still present in there. Here we go to cheddars. You hear that at the end? We start getting from a to the diddle one to come early on the right hand, on the left to chetta. So it became a on the last 4 counts. Look how high our taps got all of a sudden. We got to do these hand-to-hand figures. It looks all the way up here. And hopefully you then heard at the very end just some cheeses being a little tighter, especially on the cheese chichadas. And then on our left hand, double hand-to-hands, my goodness, these were almost accents. So we want to try to bring those back down to the tap base. I loved your flow on it, but I didn't love your balance. Let's move on. Last guy, the piece. Let's talk it. Well done. I know that's a hard piece. We started widening up our rhythms as we took paradiddles on different partials. You could hear that in the beginning. We're not hitting the E, the and then the attacks. We were widening them up. So we were closing down the 16-note spaces in between and opening up the 16th note patterns as we connected those. Moving on, I thought these were all pretty solid. Thought you did a good job. First time where we had some really high taps, similar to some of these low diddle tap issues we had on number 3, the paradiddle exercise, showed up in this part. Good balance, tap height got a little high, but then as soon as we came off the roughs, there's this crescendo right here. Notice there's no accents here. you definitely prepped for a boom, and we lost any sort of balance going from the tap through the crescendo. I think that's a cousin to number 2. We had some issues going from the hair to the 3's crescendos. We had a disconnection point, and that showed up in this bar number 7. We talked about some of our sextuplet and quarter note triplet rolls, or sorry, triplet and quarter note triplet rolls earlier. I think we had some issues on those rolls and rhythmic accuracy on this bar. This is a good bar for you to take a lot slower, where we lost the 24th note balance as we came up and came down. We want to make sure we can modulate between 3s, pagodas, parallels, rolls without changing the sextuplet timing. I would take this a lot slower. There was a lot of issues. This is the first time I caught a lot of tempo issues from you in this bar. Moving on, I thought we played pretty good on these 2 bars, and as soon as we got to the flam pattern where we had a combination of hertas, some Swiss flam mills going into the tap drags, our taps came way up on this tap accent part through the hertas. We got really wide diddles on the tap drags, similar to our tachetta figures in number 5. We just lost the tap balance on this bar. I think you working on your rule 16, all these flam runes and breaking them down. So you have right here a flam Swiss mill, rule 16 that guy. We got some left Swisses, rule 16 that guy. We have some tap accent, exercise number 1. We had some issues with those inner taps. It showed up in this piece. We have the hertas where we're kicking up the left. Minor issues. I thought that was probably the best part of these 2 exercises. But then we go into the tap drags where we got a little wide on these diddles. Similar getting wide on some of our diddles on our tachettas on the previous exercise. Overall tap balance was lost on this part. Moving on, single 5, a little bit of an issue like in exercise number 2. Though we played all this flam work a lot better here through the book report section, but then we just lost any sort of height variation on this bar. And I think where we could see it is on these hand-to-hands. I'm going to circle these guys. Notice there's no accent on those hand-to-hands. Yeah, you accent the heck out of those guys, kind of like number 5. Let's watch it on slow. I know that was a ton of information, but by you getting this recording, you see me circle the screen, you can play this back as many times as you need to. Since I will be sending it to you a private YouTube video, you can listen to me talking slow-mo if that helps you record all these notes. All right, let's watch it again. Student A. I might pause it a couple times so we could see everything in real time, what I'm seeing. Yeah, stretch those hands out. You hear how the first time it was in our right hand. Da 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 da, and a 3. Super early because we closed up the 16th note space rests. Nice 9 1. Again higher. Right there. Yeah, see how we came off of this roughs a little bit higher on this pagoda. We were like in metal piano land when we had a chance to go da 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 da. We lost that good dynamic expression that could have been shown in that part of the music. Nice, a little fast. Yeah, a little bit of rhythmic and timing issues all over the place there. Taps coming up. You can hopefully hear those tap drags being really wide. Da 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 da. Nice. Look at those hands still up there. Cool. Then we ended. All right, student A. So hopefully you could. We were able to see some correlation between the exercises that you did right now and the piece. So a lot of the same things that were written in this piece were written in the exercises on purpose. So the deficiencies that you had in those exercises are going to show up in your music in the drum lines that you're in right now. Thank you for submitting your package and getting this assessment. Best of luck to you. Hope to be able to evaluate you more in the future.